And we're speaking with our London correspondent, Rachel Brown. Rachel, just following up on what the PM was saying there, where he said there are pockets of society that are not just broken, but they're sick, that there's a complete lack of responsibility. And he went on to say there has to be a clearer code of values. What this sounds like is he's calling for a review of British society itself.
It does, Scott, and it's a very similar language he used in his election campaign last year, that whole idea that many people have found quite ambiguous here in Britain, the idea of big society, of people getting involved, joining volunteer groups, starting from scratch, being part of society. Unfortunately, I don't think David Cameron is speaking the rioters' language. They're 15, 16-year-olds. They're not thinking about things like this and thinking, well, why, as many of us may be thinking, they're thinking, why not? My friends are rioting and looting, a lot of them, from what I can gather from comments from the street, as they all see it as a bit of a joke and joining in, kind of like a sheep mentality. There was an interesting article by a social welfare worker. She started a children's charity, Camilla Batman-Galich, and she says that unfortunately savagery is in all of us, but many of us just don't resort to it. But a lot of these kids are so exhausted by failure that savagery, that they can justify it as a last resort. And she speaks about this moral economy, a false moral economy, where the weak are labelled unuseful and dysfunctional. And she said if that happens, the community's failed. And David Cameron's gone far beyond dysfunctional. He's calling them sick.
While the rioters obviously are probably not going to listen to what he had to say, what about the vast majority of Britons? Will what he has said there and what he's calling for, will that resonate with the vast majority of Britons after what they have been witnessing, even experiencing over the past 4 nights?
Residents and traders have been furious that the police and politicians don't seem to have acted fast enough. The government would say that it's never seen this type of violence before. And of course, Scott, this is the silly season. It's August. It's always expected news-wise to be a bit quiet. The leaders were on holidays. Even during the financial crisis, leaders were dealing with some of these tough budgetary debates via telephone, and some of the papers ran a funny image of a cat sitting on the House of Commons table, and it looked like the cat, David Cameron's cat, was looking after the UK Parliament. But most of the leaders are away and they've been recalled. David Cameron's come back from Tuscany, Nick Clegg's come back. He was booed in Birmingham, people saying that's it, run, go home, when he was getting into his car. Boris Johnson, the London mayor, he's returned early from holidays. He was booed in Clapham Junction. A lot of people are feeling, well, why show your faces now? You should have acted a lot earlier. Some people have taken the law into their own hands. There was a picture, an image of a man who I'll show you in West London who was bashed by thugs trying to defend his property, as you can see here. And a lot of groups are starting to do this. The English Defence League, which is a right-wing party in the UK, which Anders Behring Breivik, the man responsible for the Utøya massacre, has cited as some of his inspiration. That far-right party says 1,000 of its members are willing to patrol the streets, which a lot of people are finding a bit worrying. But on the whole, the rioters, the youths, are just being described as thugs. There's this headline: "Sweep scum off our streets," and that's the main feeling here, Scott, that they need to be, gotten rid of. So they are largely supportive of the increased presence of 16,000 police officers on the street, who will be going in hard, looking at all the CCTV cameras. And there's this one, Shop a Moron, where people are being encouraged to dob in anyone they recognise, because the British public are saying they simply won't stand for this.
London correspondent Rachel Brown, thank you very much for that update.